Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey. It's finally here. I've been hard at work on my Unity Dots course and I'm happy to announce it is now available in early access. There's already 30 lectures released with 10 hours of content where you'll learn a massive amount about how Dots works and how to build an RTS game. Now, this technology is insanely powerful. If you learn it, you will have gained an awesome new tool that will help you in making all kinds of better, more interesting games. If you don't know what is Dots, then it is simply a really awesome tool stack that can give you literally 100x performance improvements. That's not a mistake, it can generally make your code 100x faster. We're going to see a practical example in one of the lectures. That's basically all achieved by some very clever use of memory, by writing some super efficient multi-threaded code with the job system, and using the magical burst compiler. Also, using dots does not mean your game has to be entirely dots. You can absolutely combine dots and game objects. In fact, that's what you should do, and that's what we're going to do in this course. So even if you plan to keep on making games mostly just with game objects, even so, it is still very valuable to learn this skill. Like I said, Dots is insanely powerful and can definitely help you fix performance bottlenecks so you can make better, more complex games. So a bit about the early access. Initially, I was planning to launch the course only when it was fully complete, but it actually ended up being quite a bit longer and more complex than I thought. Thanks to the complex genre and actually using this interesting tech, I think in the end this will actually end up being one of the biggest courses that I've done. Right now, there's already 10 hours of content, and I think that's roughly only about a third, maybe a fourth of the entire thing. Which is awesome, it means lots of content for you to learn from, but it does mean that it takes a while to build all of this. Dots is pretty complex, it involves lots of things, and I want to make sure that I teach everything as thoroughly as possible, so you can learn how to use this awesome tool in your own games in the best way possible. The lectures that I've already done already contain a mountain of useful information. Dots is already production ready, and I'm sure that some of you are just waiting for some learning content like this course to start learning. So that's why I'm launching the course in early access. Instead of having to wait a few more months for me to finish all of the remaining lectures, instead of that you can start learning right now. The 30 lectures that are already out, they already teach a massive amount. So here's a quick overview of the entire course. Okay, so we're going to start off with a lecture mostly focused on the theory behind Dots. So what exactly is it? What are all the components to it, like ECS, job system, and burst? And just basically get a nice overview of the whole tool stack before we start using it. Then we're going to start the section for creating and setting up our project. First, create the project and install all the packages. Then we're going to set up our Unity layout. After that, set up our Visual Studio. Then import the first batch of visual assets that we're going to use. After that, set up the post-processing and lighting. And with that done, we will have our complete setup. And in order for you to follow everything exactly the same as I have in this course, this is the part where I will tell you to download the project files to use. So this way, use the exact same project as me with everything using the exact same versions. That way there is no confusion. Then we start actually building our game. So first, learning about Dots obscene baking. What is it and how do we convert game objects into entities? Next, we're going to create our first super simple component. Components store some data. So we're going to do that and set up our unit structure. Again, all while using normal game objects and the baking system. With that done, we're then going to create our very first system. It's going to be the unit mover system, which like name implies will move our unit. Meaning that at this point, we will have seen the basics of entities, components, and systems. Then we take that movement system and we're going to refactor it to use Dots physics instead of moving the object transform. This is super easy to do thanks to the Dots baking system. We're going to work with normal physics components and everything just works. Then, since this is an RTS game, we're going to need the mouse wheel position, so we're going to calculate that. This is also a super important lecture because it will teach us that not every system needs to be Dots. We can and we will have normal monobehavior scripts and dot scripts, both of them working together. Then with the mouse position, we're going to use that logic to tell the unit to move to the mouse. And then here is another super important lecture. We're going to refactor our movement code to turn it into a super fast job using the job system. We're going to see the actual numbers behind normal main-threaded code and super fast burst-enabled multi-threaded code. The difference is literally 100x. Next, we're going to handle unit selection. First, just setting up the component to select just one unit, and then we're going to be selecting multiple units. This means we're going to set up our UI and do some math to be able to draw a selection area and select multiple units. This is another great example of interacting with the dot swirl from a normal monobehavior script. Next, we're going to handle selecting a single unit by clicking on it. This is another fun lecture because it requires us to learn about dots physics and how to do a dots raycast. Then we're going to generate some move positions for a unit to go to. That way they don't all go to the exact same spot. This is basically where we can draw our own unit formations. Next, we're going to have a very important lecture, learning how to do events in Dots. This is actually really tricky because normally events require objects and delegates, so finding a data-oriented approach for events is a really interesting challenge. Then we're finally going to create some zombies to play with, create the enemies, and define what is the concept of a faction. After that, we're going to build our fine target system. So this system, coupled with the concept of factions, will work for both zombies and friendly units. It will work for both for finding units of the opposing faction, and this also requires us to work with dots physics to find nearby potential targets. Then we're going to implement the concept of health, create a component to store some data and systems to handle death, then create a visual bullet that we're going to fire, set up the component and system to make it move towards the target and damage. Next is another really important lecture where we're going to learn all about entity spawning. This has some interesting implications with regards to the concept of structural changes. After that, we're going to polish some things in our shoot logic, then set up a simple component and system for spawning zombies. Then we're going to make them randomly walk around. This requires us to learn how to use the random class that is burst compatible, which works in quite a different way than you might be used to. Next, setting up a visual health bar. This also requires an interesting setup to make sure that the bar is rendered using the dots renderer and is scaled correctly. Then we're going to polish up the shooting with some nice lights. So this one is a great example of how we can use dots companion game objects. After that, we're going to implement melee attacks. So our zombies will be able to approach our soldiers and damage them. Then we're going to implement a move override logic. This will let us have full control of our units even while they are trying to attack an enemy. And all of that will conclude the first part of the course. So yep, those are the lectures that are out right now. And coming in the future are many more lectures to build the final polished game. So we're going to learn how to create flow field pathfinding, how to do fog of war, create the minimap. We're going to learn how to have multiple buildings, multiple unit types, how to do resource gathering, massive zombie hordes. We're going to learn how to do some dots animation, which is actually a very interesting topic. And again, all of this while focusing on mixing dots and game objects so we can use the right tool for the right job, and with heavy use of the baking system to work like you're already used to. If you don't know what that means, the baking system basically lets you keep using game objects and then automatically convert them into entities. So all these topics, all of these will be coming in updates to the course over the next weeks or months. And all of this is built step by step in the course, so there is no code that is written off screen. All the lectures also have downloadable project files, so if you get lost at any point, you can just download the exact project files from that lecture and continue from there. And as usual, I'm always available in the course comments to answer any questions you may have. Now, importantly, on the topic of who this course is for, right away, this is not a beginner level course. If you are a beginner, then do not worry about dots at all. Dots is really awesome, it has some insane benefits. It is absolutely a super powerful tool that you should know, but you should only know that after learning the basics. So if you are a beginner, then definitely just stick with normal game objects until you get the basics down. You can go watch my free Catching Chaos course or my C# course to learn the basics and get your skills up. Now, if you are in the intermediate or advanced stage, then I absolutely do recommend you learn about dots. Like I said, it's an insanely powerful tool. Having this tool at your disposal will enable you to build so many more interesting games. Even if you are not interested in this particular genre, in RTS or games with tons of units, even still, I highly recommend you go through it and learn about dots. Dots is really a really awesome tool stack. It is not limited to any specific genre. Here we're going to build an RTS to learn how to use it, but you can absolutely take the knowledge of dots and apply it to any game you want. You can use it in an FPS, RPG, whatever you want to make. It's really just a different way of writing some code, and if you follow a bunch of simple rules, you can get some massive benefits, which again can be used in pretty much any game you can imagine. Also, like I've said many times, I'm a big believer in education, and specifically free education. I've made tons of free tutorials and free courses. I always want to make sure that even people who don't have any money can still learn. Basically, I always picture myself back when I was a kid, back when I wanted to learn, but I had absolutely no money. I want people like myself of way back then, I want those people to have access to high quality education, whether or not they can afford it. So right now, the early access course is paid only, but my goal is when the course is fully complete. For the final version, it will have a normal paid course, and then it will also have a free video over here on YouTube containing about the first third of the course, so about a 10-hour free course. That's why I intentionally structured the course to include many of the dots basics and how to start using it in the first few lectures, so that even people who have no money can still learn how to use this awesome technology in that completely free video. And then the people who can afford it, or who want to see the entirety of this project, those can pick up the premium version. I just want to be very upfront about what is my plan so you can make your informed decision. If you want to wait for the free 10-hour version, then that's fine. I'm hoping it will be out in, let's say, late August or September. And if you want to start learning right now, you can go ahead and pick up the course with a link in the description. The first 30 lectures are already available, which will teach you a lot, definitely more than enough to start using it in your own projects. And over time, I will be updating the course, adding more lectures as I make them. Dots is a really fascinating technology, and I can't wait for all of you to learn it. I've been really excited about this technology since it was first announced back in 2018. Now it's finally production ready, and I can't wait to have you learn and see exactly what you're all going to build. As always, I'm available in the course comments to answer any questions you have. This technology is still very new, so I'm definitely very curious to see how you use it and what questions you have. So go ahead and check it out in the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.